little smallmouth on the Delaware River. We're out here striper fishing, smallmouth fishing. Hey, I'm Bob Murray, it's the Delaware Valley Outdoors. Stay tuned, it's going to be a good one. Woo! Come here, you little devil. I'm here with Gary Mouse. Gary, Delaware River Fishing, Fly Fishing Guide Service, invited me out today to catch some stripers on the Delaware River. Gary, tell us just a little bit, what do we expect today?
What we're going to be looking for is some stripers. We're looking for them in some fast water, usually in the daytime.
Mm-hmm.
Get some nice action out of them, hook them in the fast water, they give you a real good fight, especially on the fly rod. So probably average size is going to be about 20 inches, 2 feet long.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to get up to, oh goodness, 30 and 40 and 50 inches long. The stripers get pretty big. They get up to 50 pounds up here in the river.
Mm-hmm. Now, we're going to be up in the upper Delaware here. Is there any difference in size limits or anything up here versus down in tidal water where I usually fish for stripers?
I believe it is, the limit for stripers is 26 inches, 2 of them a day you can have. Mm-hmm. 26 or 28. We'll have to check your local regulations on that for sure. And there is a closed season down in the tidal section, I believe the month of May and June.
Closed up. And
yeah.
That's because they're spawning,
they're spawning down there, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, some of the gear we have on today, this is a nice day to fish.
We got a good day today.
Yeah, it's just nice and cool. We got wading boots on.
Wet wading today, yeah.
Wet wading, and again, one of the things that I want to stress again is just we got to be careful how we're walking because you can slip out here in the river.
Oh yes, very easily.
Yeah, so we're going to take our time. We're going to pick some spots, and we're going to catch some fish, I hope. All right, let's get going. Delaware River, as I describe it, is a series of steps all the way down. You got a high and then a drop, and right in front of us here, we have another step. Now, we're coming into a pool here. How would you read this water, and what do we have in front of us here?
What I look for is I'm looking for moving water that's creating rapids. Basically what's happening is this water's swinging down and hitting these rocks, and the fish are sitting below the rapids, usually waiting for whatever gets washed in. So basically, the rapids is actually slower moving water because it's hitting rocks and slowing down. Mm-hmm. So it's it's creating oxygen in the water, mm-hmm. and it's stirring up the insects, and it's washing down any minnows or bait fish that are in the river here. Mm-hmm. So what'll happen is, usually on the warmer times of the day, the fish will come down and move into these rapids for the oxygen mostly, mm-hmm. And to feed. Then at night, what they'll do is they'll come up into these flats is what I call them, these pools here. This is what I would call a flat. They'll come up into these flats and they'll feed. And so you'll find these fish, these stripers up here at nighttime in the flats, and then they'll also be here in the morning again too. Mm-hmm. So real early in the morning, I'm always fishing close to me. I'll start fishing close. And then as the day warms up, I'll start working the rapids more often.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, when these rapids here, they create those eddies back up in there, and the fish will just lay up in those eddies. And then we have the pool here. Now, I found that fish station themselves in different times of the day in different parts of the pool. Sometimes they're in the head of the pool. Now we've just caught a few fish back down here. They're in the bottom of the pool. Now, just so you got to fish the whole thing. You can't just fish one area.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I always, when I fish the Delaware River fly fishing, I'm always casting out and across and downstream. So I'm always wading downstream to the fish. Normally, maybe dry fly fishing on the trout streams, they're casting upstream and they're working their way upstream. Delaware River's so big, it's not easy walking up river. So I'm always starting up and I'll wade my way down. This way, you'll always work your way into fish. And the different eddies that we're pointing out here, especially the stripers, they'll come in these eddies, they'll sit in there, that's like their living room, you know, that's comfort for them. And they're gonna eat any bait fish that are in there also. But also what I'm looking for is the fast edges in them eddies. The stripers will sit in them fast edges.
And so you're putting your fly out there and then just letting that fly run right across down on that eddy.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then what I'm waiting for is I'll cast across these riffles, and then as my fly drops in, when it hits the riffles, you'll feel the tension on your fly line slacking off, and you know your fly is sinking when it gets in that slower water. So then that's when I'm starting to get ready for my hits. As soon as that fly starts dropping, sometimes most of the times when I start out, I'll let it drift through there first. Nothing happens. Every once in a while, I'll just give it a couple twitches on the way in as it's swinging. So it all depends on how the fish are taking the fly.
Gary, we're on the river here, fly fishing. Obviously, I'm not a fly fisherman. You are. The average size rod that you need out here as far as fly rods go, what do you think?
Okay. Basically, on the Delaware River, what I say is you want to know what type of species of fish you're fishing for. Conventional fishermen use an ultralight spinning rod for trout, a medium action rod for maybe bass, and then a heavy action rod for out in the ocean. So I say the same thing for fly fishing. I use a smaller rod for trout, and then I go, that'd probably be a 4-weight rod, and then I would use maybe a 6 or 7 weight for the smallmouth bass, and then for the stripers I'm using nothing less than an 8-weight rod. And even with the 8-weight, if you hook a big one, you might not even get that in. So now I upgraded, well, I started using my 10-weight now, so this is a 10-weight 10-foot rod. What I would recommend is for the Delaware River, I wouldn't recommend anything shorter than a 9-foot rod. The longer your rod is, the longer cast you're going to get out there. And for the stripers, we usually want longer casts. They're usually out in the faster, stronger current.
Well, you can put that out pretty far. Now, how about the line that you have and tip it and just give us some of that stuff?
Okay, let's start off. Basically, I have the leader here, which connects to the fly line. So I use a 4-piece leader, and basically I'm tying on. I'll start off with 30-pound test section of it. That's about 4 feet. Then I tie on a 2-foot section of 25-pound. Excuse me. Then a 1-foot section of 20-pound. And then my last tippet section is 2 foot of 15-pound.
Now, why do you drop all those different weights? Why?
This is going to help us. It's going to help your fly flow through the air and roll through the air along with the fly line. It's going to follow the fly line. It's not just going to. I just don't have one piece of material on there, so it tapers down. The thicker part of the leader, which is what we call the butt section, transfers the energy from the fly line into the leader then. So then as it gets thinner and thinner and thinner, the fly rolls out nicely for us. It also doesn't let the fish see the line too.
Right. So you're actually, that's part of the casting procedure, and it's part of the way to get the fly out, because you have very little weight
Absolutely.
on the fly. So let's talk a little bit about the fly that you have there. And I had mentioned about the weight, and you had said that you're using a saltwater hook on this one?
Well, I switched flies when we were fishing. This particular fly here is the Clouser minnow. This originated from Bob Clouser in Pennsylvania. Probably 30, 40 years ago he invented this fly, and now it's used all over the world. So this is a great fly for bucktail fly, and it's a great bait fish imitation. Basically, it's a streamer.
You're trying to look like, I guess, the herring for the stripers. Am I correct? That's probably basically.
Absolutely. This will give you. This will look like whatever it looks like to the fish. As long as they eat it, I'm happy.
That's right.
But yeah, we're trying to match the herring that are coming up because they're migrating up the river right now. The herring, the shad are already by us, so.
And the stripers just follow the herring up.
The stripers are following the herring up, and I also believe that the stripers follow shad up too.
Oh, gotcha.
I wouldn't put it past a 50-pound striper to eat a shad
No,
easily.
I'm sure of that. Get us out there. Show us how you can drive that thing out.
Okay.
Now, you promised you weren't going to hook me, right?
Yeah, this will be a 10-foot rod, so I'll just keep this right over your head here. So basically, this fly line I'm using is a floating fly line. It's a weight forward. So when the manufacturer makes a fly line, the taper is determined within the first 30 feet of the fly line. Our fishing rods taper from thick to thin, so the fly lines also taper too. And you could probably easily see that. You can just see the thickness, see how thick it is, and then how thin it is back here. So then when I cast, the thick part will carry the thin part out the guides, and that's what we call shooting our line out there. So what I'm usually doing is I'm picking up my cast, stop, and all that excess will shoot out. So that's what we call shooting the line.
All right, now that it's out there, are you just letting it float by itself, or are you working it, or what are you doing?
A lot of times I'm going to let it drift through first, as long as I have the right depth of water and my fly doesn't get hung up on the rocks. When I'm looking for stripers, usually I'm going to let the fly just dead drift through the holes first. If nothing happens, then I'll put some action on it. I'll usually just let it float. If nothing happens, maybe I'll take a couple strips, 1, 2, or 3, let the fly start moving. And usually it's going to be, the fish is going to take that fly on the swing or after the swing.
That's important to remember, because even when I'm using a spinning rod here, when I throw the lure out, I let it go, and then when it comes, that's when I'm going to get that hit as it swings around.
Absolutely.
Then you're going to get the hit.
A lot of people are too anxious. They'll pick up their lure or their fly before it's done swinging. So what's happening is our fly's drifting down, it's sinking. But then as it swings and it picks up, and somehow that triggers the fish to attack it.
Exactly.
And then also, if the fish doesn't hit it, then I'll just let it hang down there for a little bit, and it's just hanging down at the end of the fly line, just waving in the current. So they'll attack it also, just sitting there.
Right.
If nothing happens, then I'll strip in real fast, right? So then that's making the fly look like a minnow trying to escape, and then that triggers a hit too. So whatever we're doing, we're trying to get the fish to trigger that bite for the fish.
All right, good. All right, Gary, we got this pool here, and with a fly rod, how do you fish it?
Basically, what I'm doing is I'm casting across and downstream and letting it drift. After it lands, what I'll do is I'll strip it in. I'll let it drift, and then strip it in real fast after it's done swinging. If nothing happens, then I'll pick up, take another cast, and I'm always usually casting across and downstream. The more I cast upstream, the more my fly will sink as it comes down river.
You can see Gary's using a fly rod, and I can't fly fish. Everybody knows that. So I'm going to use my little lightweight spinning rod, and we're going to see who can catch most fish today. I bet you he does. As you can see, Gary has worked his way out into the river, and he's got a fish on. And what he's done, he's worked his way out, and it's really important to pick your spots. And what he's done, he's worked his way out, and he's behind that rock there, so he's got a little bit of a break in the water so he can hold himself up, because believe it or not, that water is fast out there. It may not be very deep where he's standing, but it's slippery. The rocks are wet with moss, and holding on to that fish and trying to keep your balance is a really important thing to do. He also has good wading shoes on, got cleats under him, and he's got his vest on just in case he takes a tumble. So there he goes, working that fish in. Got a nice fish. Got a nice fish out there. Got a nice fish. And he lost it. But again, as you can see, worked his way out. And he's really shallow right now, but in between where he was and myself, there's a lot of deeper water in there, so you got to be careful when you wade out there. But you can see the length of his cast. When he casts, he's putting that fly way out in there, so he gets a nice long drift all the way down there, and he's picking out the edges. Of course, from where we are, you can just see a bunch of the edges, but he's picking each edge in between those rocks there. There's a little eddy and a little edge, and that's where the stripers, or even bass too, are going to be sitting. And he's putting his fly right along that edge, strip, right along, let it flip back, come back up, and he'll work that cast all the way back, and then cast back out. But he's going to pick his spots. Now he may stay there for a couple more minutes, may move down a little bit, because the fish may have moved down lower in the pool. So he'll just watch it, see what's going on, let the fish tell him what's happening, and he'll just work that spot. But again, you got to be careful when you're wading out there. That water is fast. It's not very cold, but it's fast, and you can slip and really get hurt. So you got to be careful when you do it. Again, he's wearing really good wading shoes, and he does have his life vest on, which you always should have when you're out here. The things that when you wade fish, you can cover a lot of water by just walking and wading down. We moved up here to the wing dam, and for some of you it looks familiar. This is the wing dam at New Hope and Lambertville, and we have the water coming through, and below it we have all these great rifts. Again, I got to stress, it is slippery out there, so you got to wear good shoes, safety vest, and you'll have fun. Again, what you want to do is you want to get to these rifts and pick out every one of these little pockets, because the fish are going to hold there. It's like Gary's got a good fish in the rift. Again, it's really hard to get out to some of these spots, and again, you got to always stress safety with them. Again, he's out there, he's got a nice fish, and again, on that light that fly rod, it's a lot of fun bringing that fish in. A nice little striper there. There he is. That's what he's doing. So he's going to get back out there again and see if he can catch another striper.
And now for a closer look at today's tackle, Delaware Valley Outdoors presents the Tackle Box. For more information about the tackle used on today's show, go to DelawareValleyOutdoors.com.
All right, Gary, we're here with the Tackle Box section of the show. And you brought out some of your favorite flies for stripers. Now this fly here, what do I have right here?
This is the Deceiver, Lefty Craze Deceiver. It's made out of white saddle and bucktail represents the gills, and I tie a little peacock herl over the top, so that's representing the herring that are coming up the river.
So you got a little bit of contrast going on here, light and dark, and then you got a little flash in there. And now, do you use any special hook, or do you just tie a regular hook on there?
Those I use a stainless steel hook. It's a lot stronger.
Yeah, because you got to figure you got a choice of catching a 20-pound, 30-pound fish. You don't want that hook to
Straighten out.
for you. That's good. Now, is this your favorite color though for the stripers?
The white, yeah. Also black I'll use at nighttime.
Okay, now this one here.
That's the Bob Clouser's. That's called the Clouser Deep Minnow. Is the official name for that. And that particular style there, I have the rainbow flash in the middle, and I also use a silver flash in a different pattern. This one, I believe, he calls this one the Silver Shiner, and the one with silver he calls the Susquehanna Shiner. So
Well, that's what he started out with. That was
the fish eat them, so I like them.
Right. Now, any special weight with this that you use on this, or is it just the head that you tie?
Yeah, the lead eyes. The eyes will weigh it down, and it also gives it the action where it sort of kicks when you're stripping it, and it also, you know, it dips down, comes back up again. So the lead eyes really give that some good action, and it lets it ride upside down, so your hook point is riding up
like that. So
yep, and like you can drag it right along the rocks, and you'll get snagged once in a while, but it's a lot less weedless.
Okay, stripers, they're out there. But you got to talk about my smallmouth now.
Yeah, they're fun, man.
Because, you know, I like my smallmouths. I grew up on this hunk of the river right here, so I get to. Now this fly here, this is a really neat colored fly. Tell me about this one.
Yeah, that's the darter, the Clouser darter, and that is representing the little black, I guess they're sculpins, or you see in the smaller creeks. Darting underneath the rocks. So when they're in the water, they're very colorful. When you take them out of the water, they lose their color. So I remember Mr. Clouser saying that he actually studied these under the water, and those were the colors that were in that, the purples and the blues. So that's a real good fly for smallmouth.
Okay, now this is an interesting one, and tell us, I mean, what it's made out of too, because I think that's pretty cool thing.
That's the Clouser suspender, and that is made with a lot of silver flash in there, marabou tail, and it's like a bullet head with the sheep's wool. So that sort of flutters in the water real slowly, makes it look like maybe a wounded bait fish or a dying bait fish, and they'll come up and grab that.
And this is a pretty. You got these are very narrow baits, but this is more of a bulk bait too, because when that fills up, it's still going to be a good profile.
It breathes, it undulates under the water. So we want a wide profile, but we want our flies to be thin, so they flow through the air easy when we cast them.
Right. Got stripers, we got some smallies. Smaller than that, we got these. What are these?
They're my shad flies that I tie for shad. So just a little silver body and chartreuse head on it. I also use the fluorescent orange head. Anything bright for the shad usually gets them to hit pretty good.
Now, do you fish them any differently than, say, a regular fly, or because of the shad, you get them down deeper, or you keep them up, or what's the story with that?
Yeah, usually with shad, we're using sinking lines because they're known to run up the bottoms of the rivers through the channels where it's easier for them to get up. So I'll always try and get them closer to the bottom with some sinking lines.
Okay, now, speaking of sinking lines, got a wonderful rod here. Now, this is a Loomis rod, and tell us about the rod.
This is a Loomis 10-foot, 10-weight IMX, two-piece, which they don't make anymore. So this is a very rare rod, very powerful rod. It's a fast action rod. When you're talking about fly rods, you have slow action, which basically bends all the way down to the handle. So they're mostly for your trout fishing. So when you have your very fine tippets, the whole rod gives, and then your tippets doesn't break. The faster action rods only flex within the very tip of the rod. So it's going to throw your bigger flies, and it's going to cast farther also for you.
And you need a little something with a little bit of backbone here. If you're hanging on a 20-pound fish, even a 10-pound fish out in that current, you need a little bit of backbone in there. Now I know you mentioned before that you went to the 10-foot to pick up that line and really get it out there and get a good hook set on the fish.
The longer the rod, the longer the cast you're going to get. So on the river, I don't go any shorter than a 9-foot rod, and I wouldn't go any lighter than an 8-weight for the stripers. And if you get a big 50-pound striper, a cow is what we call it, you might not get them in anyway, no matter what rod you have.
And you mentioned the reel. Just tell me a little bit about the ability to change here.
This reel is STH brand, and I like it because it has a cassette spool, so they're very easy to change, and I can have different lines with me.
Okay, I see. So you can just pop that out, put a different weight line on
Yep.
there, a size line, and do it that
Yep.
way.
If something's not hitting on top, I can put a sinking line on and go to the bottom.
Well, speaking of rods, one of the best ways that I learned fishing from years and years ago was just get myself a little ultralight spinning rod or medium action light. You're gonna have a lot of fun, especially today we're catching fish on that this thing just gives you a lot of action. Same thing here. If you want to go out and wade like we're doing, get a small rod like this. It's really light. It's really you're going to catch some fish, but they'll feel like monsters out there, especially in that fast water. And it's really easy on your arm, especially if you're taking kids with you and stuff like that. It's real simple to use. My baits are pretty simple. I keep them in a little box in my vest. Just some small little minnows, poppers, and that's all you really need.
Yeah, that's a good imitation there.
Yeah.
You got the red gills imitating, that's looking like a herring.
Yeah, and this will catch stripers, you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
One of the other things that we got to mention, we're out there, we got our things, is that you have to wear life preserver. Now I got my SOS on here that I wore today, and it's really comfortable because it's warm out, but this is comfortable to use, and you should always have this with you. Wading stick's always good, stuff like that. You got to be safe out there because it's slippery.
Yep.
Hey, I'm Bob Murray, and that's the Tackle Box. Gary, I want to thank you an awful lot for coming out with us today. I enjoyed the living. I haven't done this in a long time, and I'm really going to get back into getting back on the river, wading, fishing. Again, if you want any more information about Gary, go to our website, DelawareValleyOutdoors.com. We link right over to him. You can hook up to him, talk to him, email him, find out what's the best time to go fishing on the river. You fish basically till it gets icy, don't you?
The best time to go fishing is anytime you can.
That's right. Hey, I'm Bob Murray. I'll see you on the water.